Charlotte's shoe was still on the marble floor when the West Wing access doors sealed themselves. The royal guard noticed it because it violated protocol. Nothing personal was ever left behind. He stopped mid-step, listening to the faint impact of small fists on reinforced glass. No alarm triggered, no staff approached. Only a child on the wrong side of a locked system. The impact was soft but irregular, knuckles against glass, too light to trigger any alert. The royal guard registered it before he understood it. His boot had already lifted for the next patrol step when the sound repeated, faster this time. Not the rhythm of maintenance or security checks. It was untrained, panicked. He turned. Charlotte stood on the far side of the West Wing access doors, palms flat against the reinforced glass. One shoe was missing. Her hair was uneven, as if it had been pulled loose by hurried hands. Her eyes locked onto his the moment she saw the red of his uniform. The doors were sealed. No amber warning, no escort tag, no override request. Just a royal child behind a locked security partition that should never separate her from staff. He moved without breaking posture, closing the distance to the glass. "Stay where you are," he said, voice low, not to command her but to keep her still. Children ran when they panicked. This corridor led to service lifts and blind corners. She shook her head, already crying. "She locked me out," Charlotte said. "Camilla did." She closed the door. That was not a claim. It was a statement, flat, unadorned. The way children spoke when they were not inventing anything. The guard glanced at the overhead cameras. Their small red indicators were active. The West Wing was one of the most monitored corridors in the palace. Nothing here happened without being recorded. Which made this worse. He tapped his wrist unit, pulling the access log for the door behind her. The system returned a green status. No forced entry, no mechanical fault. The seal had been authorized. A second detail registered. Charlotte's breathing was uneven, not from running but from restraint, as if she had tried not to cry until she could no longer hold it back. He crouched slightly so his face was level with hers through the glass. "Did anyone else see this?" he asked. She shook her head again. "She told them to go. She said I was in the way." The door behind Charlotte led to Camilla's private passage, a controlled corridor reserved for senior members of the household. Children were allowed through only when escorted. No escort had been logged. The guard straightened. Protocol said he should escort Charlotte back to her assigned staff and notify the duty supervisor later. Quietly, without creating a report that would ripple upward. Instinct said something else. He touched the manual override panel beside the glass. It was inactive. That meant the lock had not been set by security. It had been set by an internal clearance. Someone with authority had told the system to keep her out. "Come here," he said through the glass, gesturing her closer to the door. He needed to be sure she was not hurt. She obeyed, pressing her shoulder to the frame. There were no visible marks, but she was shaking. Footsteps echoed somewhere down the corridor behind him. Palace staff moved constantly through this wing. Any moment, someone could appear and take control of the situation. If they did, the story would change. The guard made a decision. He keyed his wrist unit into live log mode. That single action meant everything that followed would be time-stamped, archived, and retrievable by senior command. It was not a report yet, but it could become one. "Charlotte," he said quietly, "I need you to stay right there." He stepped to the side console and requested a door status audit. The system hesitated, then displayed the clearance ID. It was Camilla's. Before he could save the record, a voice cut through the corridor. "Why is that door active?" The guard turned. A senior palace aide stood at the far end of the hall, her tablet already in her hands, eyes flicking from him to the sealed glass where Charlotte waited. Her expression did not show surprise. It showed calculation. "You don't need to be here," she said. "We'll take care of it." The guard did not move away from the console. Charlotte's fingers curled tighter against the glass. The system was still waiting for his confirmation to store the clearance log. If he canceled now, it would vanish. If he didn't, this would become something no one could quietly erase. He kept his thumb hovering over the screen as the aide began walking toward him. "Stand down," she said, her tone polite and absolute. "This is a private family matter." The child watched him. The clock on his wrist ticked forward. The aide stopped 3 steps away, close enough that the faint scent of polished wood and perfume reached him. Her tablet was angled against her chest now, no longer a tool, more a symbol. Behind her, 2 junior staff hovered at the corridor entrance, waiting for instruction, eyes deliberately not looking at the glass. The guard did not lower his wrist. The system chimed softly, a reminder that the clearance log was still pending. "Deactivate the audit," the aide said. Her voice was low, controlled. "We will escort Her Royal Highness back inside." Charlotte made a small sound then, something between a breath and a protest. She pressed her forehead to the glass, watching him. He did not look away from the aide. "There is an active child exclusion clearance on a senior corridor," he said. "That requires reporting." Her eyes narrowed a fraction. "That corridor is private. You do not have standing to audit it." "I have standing to protect a minor in my sector." A pause. In that pause, power adjusted its weight. "You are out of scope," she said. "You are to maintain order, not interrogate household movement." He finally pressed his thumb down. The log saved. The aide saw the small confirmation light on his wrist unit. It was enough. Her jaw tightened. "That was unnecessary," she said. "You've created a problem." "I've created a record." One of the junior staff shifted. Somewhere above them, a camera motor adjusted, tracking the group. The aide exhaled slowly, as if counting. "Open the door," she said. "We will return the child." "That door was closed under a clearance that should not exist," the guard replied. "I need authorization from Palace Security Command before I release her." "That will take time." "Yes." Charlotte slid down the glass until she was sitting on the floor, hugging her knees. She was quiet now, exhausted by the first rush of fear. The aide glanced at her, then back at him. "You are escalating something that does not require it." "Respectfully," he said, "a child being locked out of a secured corridor by a senior royal requires it." That was the moment the air changed, when a truth was spoken that could not be taken back. The aide touched her earpiece. "Control, this is household operations. We have a minor at West Wing Door 3, requesting immediate override." The guard tapped his wrist. "Security Command, this is Red 27. I have an active child separation under a private clearance. I am requesting supervisory review before release." Both channels went live at once. 2 authorities now knew something was wrong. The aide's gaze hardened. "You don't understand how this works." "I understand exactly how it works." Charlotte looked up when she heard voices through the glass. "Am I in trouble?" she asked him, her voice thin. "No," he said without hesitation. "You are not." Security Command responded first. "Red 27, hold position. Do not open the door until review." The aide closed her eyes for half a second. When she opened them, her expression was no longer polite. "You've made a serious error," she said quietly. "This will not end the way you think." "That's not why I did it." Footsteps sounded from both ends of the corridor now, security on one side, household officials on the other. The space between them was becoming contested ground. Charlotte stood again, pressing closer to the glass. He moved nearer, positioning himself so his body blocked her from view of the approaching staff. The door remained sealed. The clearance that put her there was no longer invisible. And nothing in the West Wing was quiet anymore. The first thing the royal guard noticed was the silence. Not the ordinary palace quiet, this was deliberate. The West Wing corridor had been cleared, not by evacuation, but by instruction. Even the maintenance drones that usually hummed through the ceiling rails were absent. The air felt held. Charlotte sat on a padded security bench beside him, a folded palace blanket around her shoulders. She was no longer crying, but her hands had not stopped moving, twisting the edge of the fabric as if it were the only solid thing left. Across from them, Security Command's portable console projected a pale blue grid against the wall. Clearance logs scrolled downward in tight lines of code. The door behind her was no longer the focus. The system was. "Confirm again," a security supervisor said quietly. "This clearance was issued by whom?" The guard watched the data as it updated. Primary Household Authority, Lady Camilla's private ID. A slight pause. That name did not cause reactions, it caused recalculations. "There are no child restriction protocols assigned to her ID," the supervisor said. "There shouldn't be." "Yet one was used," the guard replied. "West Wing, door 3, 15 minutes ago." Charlotte looked up. "She told me not to follow her," she said softly. "She said the grown-ups were talking." The guard did not turn. He did not want to put her in the center of the room. "What happened after?" the supervisor asked. "She closed the door," Charlotte said. "I thought she was joking, but it locked." The log showed the same thing. A child exclusion command had been applied to a Priva T corridor, a feature designed for fire, evacuation, or crowd control, not for isolating a single minor. The supervisor leaned closer to the display. "That command is buried. It's not in standard menus." "I know," the guard said. "I had to dig to find the audit." Someone had wanted it used quietly. A figure stepped into the corridor, palace operations, not security. A senior official in a dark suit, eyes already measuring the room. The aide from earlier was with him, her tablet held rigidly. "This is being mishandled," the official said calmly. "The child is safe now. We don't need further escalation." "Safety isn't retroactive," the guard replied. The official looked at him then. "Truly, you are a ceremonial guard." "I am assigned to child protection zones." "You do not investigate household authority." "Then someone else should have been here." Charlotte shifted. The blanket slipped, revealing the scuffed sock on her bare foot. No one had brought her shoe back yet. The supervisor cleared his throat. "The clearance log exists," he said. "It has been stored." The aide's lips pressed together. "We need to know how that protocol was accessed," the guard said. "Who enabled it?" "That system is restricted," the official replied. "We can review it internally." "With respect, sir," the supervisor said, "it was used on a minor. That triggers automatic oversight." The official's eyes flicked to him, then to Charlotte, then back. "Let's not dramatize." "It's not drama," the guard said. "It's compliance." A low tone sounded from the console. Another clearance request had been made. Household Operations was trying to pull Charlotte back into the private corridor. The supervisor's jaw tightened. "They're attempting to override." "Can they?" the guard asked. "Only if security steps aside." The aide met his gaze. "You have created a procedural conflict. This will be resolved." "Not without answers," he said. Charlotte looked up at him again. "Am I going back?" she asked. Before he could answer, the console flashed. "Override pending." Security Command had seconds to decide whether to yield to royal household authority or lock the system down and make this public. The guard felt the weight of that decision press into the room. The console chimed once, sharp and final. "Override denied. Security hold active." No one spoke for a full second. The palace operations official's eyes narrowed, not in anger but in recognition. This had crossed from household inconvenience into institutional friction. That line, once crossed, did not easily uncross. "You are freezing a senior corridor," he said slowly. "That has consequences." "So does isolating a child," the supervisor replied. Charlotte drew her knees up again. The blanket rustled. The guard stepped half a pace closer to her, not touching, just close enough that she could feel someone solid beside her. The aide tapped rapidly on her tablet. "You're turning a family misunderstanding into a security incident." "It became one when a hidden protocol was used," the guard said. "We didn't invent that." A second security officer entered, carrying a handheld data mirror. "We've pulled the back-end access path," he said quietly to the supervisor. "The command didn't come through Camilla's Surface ID. It was routed through a proxy." The room shifted again. "A proxy?" the guard asked. "Someone with system-level credentials masked the origin," the officer replied. "It was designed to look like household authority." That meant intent, that meant planning. The palace operations official folded his hands. "This is sensitive. We will take custody of the logs." "No," the supervisor said. "They are already duplicated into command archives." The aide's composure finally cracked. "You're going to blow this out of proportion." The guard looked at Charlotte's bare foot, at the thin red mark where her shoe had rubbed. Proportion left when someone decided she could be shut out with a keystroke. Charlotte stared at the blue grid on the wall. "Why did she do it?" she asked, not to anyone in particular. No one answered. Another alert sounded. This one was different, higher level. External oversight had been notified. That was automatic once a child exclusion protocol was flagged. The palace operations official exhaled slowly. "You realize what you've done." "I realize what was done to her," the guard replied. Security began to reposition in the corridor, forming a subtle barrier between Charlotte and the private passage. The aide watched it happen, her expression tight with calculation. The supervisor turned to the guard. "We need a full statement. You will be required to remain available." "I'm not leaving her," he said. "That's acceptable." Charlotte leaned slightly toward him. "I don't like that door," she whispered. "It won't touch you again," he said. But even as he spoke, he knew the truth was more complicated. Doors in the palace did not simply close. They were closed by people, and now those people knew he had seen how. Somewhere deeper in the West Wing, a senior clearance was being reconsidered. And someone, quietly, was deciding how to make this go away. The corridor lights dimmed by a fraction as the security perimeter shifted. Not darkness, just enough to signal a change in control. The royal guard felt it before he saw it. The palace had a way of tightening its posture when something sensitive moved through its systems. Doors reclassified, cameras reassigned. Even the air pressure in the sealed halls adjusted, subtle and precise. Charlotte walked beside him now, wrapped in her blanket, her steps small but steady. Two security officers flanked them at a respectful distance, not close enough to frighten her, not far enough to allow interruption. Ahead lay the entrance to Camilla's private corridor. The passage was rarely used. It was designed to bypass public halls and staff routes, connecting private suites to meeting rooms without observation. It was also where the child exclusion protocol had been deployed. The guard's wrist unit vibrated. Security command. Red 27 were tracking the proxy path. It leads into that corridor. He did not reply. He already knew. Charlotte slowed as they approached the access frame. The doors here were not glass. They were matte black, seamless, designed to look like a wall until they moved. "She went that way," Charlotte said quietly, after she closed the door. "Did anyone go with her?" he asked. She shook her head. She said they didn't need to hear. The guard felt a pressure behind his ribs that had nothing to do with fear. It was the awareness that someone had deliberately removed witnesses. The corridor unlocked with a soft hydraulic sound. No announcement, no chime, privacy built into every mechanism. The lead security officer glanced at the guard. "We have limited authority past this point." "We have a child involved," the guard replied. "That extends it." They entered. The temperature dropped by several degrees. The corridor was lined with dark wood panels, polished to a mirror sheen. Recessed lights cast narrow strips of illumination across the floor, leaving the ceiling in shadow. This was not a place meant to be seen. Charlotte's steps echoed too loudly. She moved closer to him. A door halfway down the corridor stood slightly ajar. No one had bothered to close it fully. The guard raised a hand, halting the team. He approached alone, every movement deliberate. From inside, he heard voices. Low, controlled. "Shouldn't have used that setting," one voice said. "I didn't expect her to," another replied. "Camilla S." He did not step closer. He did not need to. Charlotte tugged his sleeve. "That's her," she whispered. Security Command's voice came through his earpiece. "Red 27, we are detecting a system purge request from that corridor." "They're trying to erase it," he said quietly. The lead officer swore under his breath. The guard made a decision. He turned and tapped his wrist unit twice, switching it to live environmental capture. Every sound in this corridor would now be streamed and archived. He stepped forward. The door creaked open another inch. Inside, Camilla stood with her back to them, speaking to a man in a dark suit, the same palace operations official from before. Her posture was rigid. "She shouldn't have been there," she was saying. Charlotte's fingers tightened in his sleeve. The guard crossed the threshold. "Ma'am," he said calmly, "we need to speak." Camilla turned. Her expression did not show surprise. It showed recognition. And something colder. Camilla's gaze moved past the guard to Charlotte, then back to him. It was not hostile. It was assessing, as if she were measuring the cost of a complication that had not been planned for. "This is inappropriate," she said. "You are in a private space." "So was she," the guard replied. The palace operations official shifted his weight. "Security is exceeding its mandate." "There is an active child separation investigation," the guard said. "That overrides privacy." Camilla's lips pressed together. Charlotte was not in danger. Charlotte flinched at the sound of her name. "She was locked out of a secured corridor without supervision," the guard said. "That meets the definition." The man in the suit took a step forward. "This does not require your presence, guard." "It requires hers," the guard replied, nodding toward Charlotte, "and she is here." Camilla's eyes flicked to the security officers now visible behind him in the corridor. The perimeter was no longer symbolic. "You are making a mistake," she said softly. "This will be handled internally." "It already isn't," he said. A tone sounded from his wrist unit. "Security Command. Red 27, the purge attempt has been blocked. We have captured the proxy path." Camilla's jaw tightened. "Someone used a masked clearance to activate a restricted protocol on a minor," the guard continued. "That is not a family matter. That is a secure ID breach." Charlotte took a small step forward, still half hidden behind him. "You locked me out," she said. "I couldn't get back in." Camilla looked down at her. For a moment, something like irritation crossed her face. "I told you to wait," she said. "You closed the door," Charlotte replied. Silence. The palace operations official cleared his throat. "We can de-escalate this if everyone steps back." "There is nothing to de-escalate," the guard said, "only to account for." Security officers moved into the room now, positioning themselves near the terminals on the far wall. One began copying system data. Camilla's voice hardened. "You will not remove anything from this corridor." "We already have," the supervisor said through the guard's earpiece. The guard watched Camilla, realized that control had slipped. Charlotte leaned closer to him. "Am I going to get in trouble?" she asked. "No," he said again. Camilla's eyes met his. "You think you are protecting her," she said. "You are creating a scandal." "Then it was already there," he replied. The palace operations official's tablet chimed. External oversight had fully engaged. This was no longer containable. Camilla turned away, her shoulders tight. "Get her out of here." "She leaves with us," the guard said. That was the moment the balance tipped. Charlotte was not going back into that corridor. And everyone in the room knew it. Charlotte's hand slipped into the royal guard's as they stepped out of Camilla's private corridor. He did not squeeze it. He simply let it stay there, a quiet acknowledgement of proximity. The corridor beyond was now lined with uniformed security, their posture neutral but their presence unmistakable. Household staff waited further back, clustered near a side junction. The palace operations official had already fallen into step beside them, his face unreadable. "Release the child to household care," he said calmly. "This is the proper channel." The guard did not break stride. "She remains under security until medical and supervisory clearance is issued." "That's unnecessary." "So was the protocol used on her." Charlotte's grip tightened. They reached a temporary security alcove, glass walls, sealed entry designed for holding high-level visitors during incidents. A medic was waiting inside, a neutral one, not from household. That mattered. Before they could enter, 3 palace aides stepped forward, blocking the path. One held out a tablet. "We have authorization to retrieve Her Royal Highness." The guard looked at the screen. It was formatted correctly. It carried the right signatures. It had been generated fast. "Too fast." "Who issued this?" he asked. "Household operations." "Not acceptable." The aide's smile was thin. "You don't have discretion here." "I do when a minor is involved in a security breach." Charlotte glanced from one face to another. She did not understand the words, only the tension. A new voice joined them. "You're stalling." Camilla stood at the end of the corridor, no longer behind doors. Her posture was composed, her presence unmistakable. She did not look at Charlotte. She looked at the guard. "This has gone far enough," she said. "Bring her to me." The guard did not move. "Ma'am," he said, "she will be seen by a medic first." "She doesn't need." "She will." The palace operations official leaned in. "You are defying direct instruction." "I am following child protection protocol." "Which you are not trained to interpret." Charlotte's breathing picked up. The air felt crowded. The medic waited, eyes flicking between them, uncertain whether to step forward. Camilla took one step closer. "You are embarrassing the family." "I am protecting a child." "That is not your role." "It is." Security Command's voice came through his earpiece. "Red 27, household is pushing for transfer. We advise hold." The guard nodded slightly. "Open the alcove," he said. The aides moved to block him. This was no longer procedural. It was physical. Charlotte pressed against his side as voices rose, not loud but sharp. And somewhere behind them, someone was already preparing a disciplinary order with his name on it. The standoff lasted only seconds, but it felt longer. A security officer stepped in front of the aides, placing his body between them and the guard. "Stand back," he said, not raised, not soft, just final. The palace operations official opened his mouth to protest, then stopped when he saw 2 more security officers moving into position. The perimeter was no longer symbolic. "Open the alcove," the supervisor ordered. The glass doors slid apart. The guard guided Charlotte inside. The medic immediately knelt, speaking quietly, checking her pulse, her breathing, the faint redness on her foot. Nothing dramatic, just careful. Camilla watched through the glass, her reflection fractured across its surface. "This is unnecessary theater," she said. "This is documentation," the supervisor replied. The guard stood just inside the door. "See." Harlot sat on the bench, letting the medic work. She did not cry. That worried him more than if she had. Household aides huddled with the palace operations official, voices low, urgent. Their tablets glowed with rapid message traffic. "They're escalating to disciplinary," security command said in his ear. "Against you." "Understood." Camilla turned away from the glass. When she faced them again, her expression was controlled. "Release her," she said. "Now." "No," the supervisor said. "This will have consequences." "So did what you did." Silence fell. Charlotte looked up at the guard. "Am I staying with you?" she asked. "For now," he said. The medic finished and stood. "She's shaken but stable, no injuries." The supervisor nodded. "We're transferring her to neutral protection." The palace operations official's head snapped up. "That is not authorized." "It is under child separation protocol," the supervisor replied, "which was triggered by your corridor." Camilla's eyes hardened. This was no longer about a door. It was about who controlled the narrative. And for the first time, it wasn't her. The neutral protection suite was not designed for comfort. It was designed for integrity. White walls, soft lighting, no royal insignia, no personal staff. Just a secure space that belonged to security command, not to the household. Charlotte sat on a low couch, sipping water the medic had given her. The blanket was gone now, folded neatly beside her. She looked smaller without it. The royal guard stood near the door, not formally at attention, but not relaxed either. He could hear the faint hum of the secure servers through the wall. Everything in this room was being recorded, archived, duplicated. That was why they had brought her here. Security Command's data officer connected a portable drive to the wall terminal. "We're pulling all corridor activity from the last hour," he said quietly. "Video, audio, access logs." "Household will try to block it," the supervisor replied. "They already did," the officer said. "Too late." Charlotte watched the progress bar move. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Making sure no one can pretend this didn't happen," the guard said. She nodded, not fully understanding but trusting the tone. Outside the glass wall, palace operations staff argued in tight clusters. Their words did not carry, but their gestures did. This room had become something they could not enter. The supervisor turned to the guard. "You realize they're framing this as overreach." "They always will. They're preparing a counter-report." "Then we need ours to be accurate." A warning tone sounded. "Incoming override attempt." The data officer's fingers moved faster. "They're trying to isolate Camilla's ID." "Can they?" the guard asked. "Not without leaving traces." "Good." Charlotte slid off the couch and walked closer to the glass. "Are they mad?" she asked. "Yes," the guard said, "but not at you." Security Command's voice came through. "Red 27, household is attempting to invoke private privilege on the corridor feed." "That corridor was used in a child separation," he replied. "It's not private anymore." "Agreed." The data officer smiled thinly. "We've got the audio from inside the corridor." "What does it show?" the supervisor asked. "Intent." A small sound came from the speakers. Camilla's voice, captured earlier. She shouldn't have been there. Charlotte stiffened. The guard reached out and gently guided her back to the couch. "You don't have to listen," he said. Outside, the palace operations official's tablet began flashing with alerts. He knew what was happening. The truth was being copied. And once it existed in more than one place, it could not be erased quietly. The audio stream continued, a low murmur of voices pulled from Camilla's private corridor. The quality was imperfect, but the meaning was not. Shouldn't have used that setting. Didn't expect her to. The data officer muted it. That's enough, the supervisor said. We don't need to hear more. The guard looked at Charlotte. She was staring at the blank wall now, not at the glass, not at the screens. He was glad the sound had been cut when it was. Security Command spoke through his earpiece. We have duplicated the logs to 3 independent archives. Household privilege has been overridden. That will trigger response, the supervisor said. Already has. Outside the suite, Palace operations staff were on their phones now, not just tablets. Calls were being made to people far above this corridor. This will become political, the supervisor said quietly. They will try to make you the problem. The guard did not answer. He was watching Charlotte, who had curled up on the couch, knees to her chest, eyes tired. The medic returned with a small pair of slippers. For her foot, she said gently. Charlotte slid them on. They were too big but soft. A new alert sounded on the terminal. Formal complaint filed against Red 27, the data O. Pfizer said, exceeding authority, creating disturbance. The supervisor closed his eyes briefly. Of course. The guard nodded once, understood. You could step back now, the supervisor said. Let this be handled. And let them take her. There will be pressure. There already is. Charlotte looked up. Are you in trouble? Yes, he said, but that's not your concern. The glass wall darkened slightly as the suite shifted into full privacy mode. No one outside could see in now. That was Security Command's doing. The Palace operations official realized it and slammed his palm against the glass, not in anger, but in frustration. He knew the narrative was slipping. The supervisor turned to the guard. We're moving her under independent child protection. When? Now. Charlotte's eyes widened. Where? A safe place, the guard said, with people whose job is only to look after you. She nodded slowly. This was no longer a misunderstanding. It was an official separation. And someone very powerful had just lost control of it. The transport corridor was colder than the rest of the palace. Not by accident. Security routes were climate-controlled to keep people alert. The royal guard felt it through the thin fabric of his gloves as he walked beside Charlotte, her small steps muffled by the borrowed slippers. 2 independent child protection officers waited ahead, their dark jackets unmarked by royal insignia. That alone made them unwelcome in this wing. The palace operations official appeared again, moving quickly now. You are not authorized to remove her from palace grounds. Child separation protocol overrides that, the supervisor replied. Camilla was not with him. That was deliberate. You're manufacturing a crisis, the official said. There will be consequences. The guard did not respond. He was watching the corridor behind them. Palace security was holding, but household influence traveled through doors without needing to open them. Charlotte squeezed his hand. Are they going to stop us? No, he said. Keep walking. A tone sounded from his wrist unit. Red 27, disciplinary hold initiated. You are ordered to stand down and surrender escort. The order came from High Command. Not Security Command. The guard stopped. The child protection officers froze, uncertain. Repeat, he said. You are relieved of duty pending review. Step away from the minor. This was the counterstrike, clean, official, designed to look lawful. The palace operations official smiled faintly. There it is. Charlotte looked up. What does that mean? It means they want me to go, he said. Don't, she whispered. He looked at the 2 independent officers. You are authorized to take her. They hesitated. You heard the order, the official said. He is no longer cleared. Security Command cut in. That order did not originate with us. Doesn't matter, the official replied. It stands. The guard felt the pressure close around him. Protocol versus presence. If he stepped aside, Charlotte would be isolated again, this time with paperwork. He made another decision. He did not let go of her hand. I am not surrendering her to household, he said. This is insubordination. So be it. Security officers began moving, some toward him, some toward the palace operations official. The corridor filled with bodies. Charlotte pressed against him, silent now. This was the moment where careers ended, or children disappeared into systems that did not answer questions. The corridor felt suddenly smaller. Security officers hesitated, caught between two command chains that no longer aligned. Their training was built for clear authority, not for fractures this high. Red 2-7, Security Command said in his ear, quieter now. We are challenging the disciplinary hold. It is being reviewed. That takes time, the palace operations official said, and the child cannot remain in limbo. She isn't, the guard replied. She's with me. Charlotte's fingers were cold against his palm. The two independent child protection officers exchanged a look. One of them stepped forward. Our mandate is active, she said. We will take custody. Not until his status is resolved, the official snapped. Then resolve it, the guard said. A new presence entered the corridor. A senior security commander, uniform darker, rank unmistakable. He took in the scene in a single glance. Status, he said. Household is attempting retrieval under a disciplinary pretext, Security Command replied. The commander turned to the palace operations official. Your order did not come through authorized security channels. It came from above you, not above child protection. The official's face tightened. He knew this was slipping again. The commander looked at the guard. Do you have physical custody? Yes, sir. Then you maintain it until relieved by Security Command. Camilla's influence had reached the ceiling, but it had not passed it. Charlotte exhaled a SM. All breath she had been holding. The child protection officers moved closer. We're ready. The guard knelt in front of Charlotte. You're going with them now, he said. They will keep you safe. Will you come? No. Her eyes filled, but she did not cry. She nodded once. The transfer was quiet. No ceremony. Just a handoff between adults who understood the weight of it. As the officers led her away, the guard felt something like relief and something like loss. Behind him, the palace operations official was already on his phone. The story was far from over. But Charlotte was out of reach. The security wing did not celebrate victories. It absorbed them and moved on. The royal guard stood alone in a narrow debriefing room, his ceremonial jacket folded neatly on the table in front of him. Without it, he felt exposed, as if some part of his authority had been left behind in the corridor where Charlotte walked away. A single wall screen showed the transport feed, the independent protection vehicle leaving palace grounds, its dark silhouette passing through the outer gate. No sirens, no markings, just motion. She's clear, Security Command said through the speaker. She's off the estate. The guard closed his eyes briefly. That was the first moment of safety she had had all day. The door opened. Two officials entered, Security Command and Palace Legal. They did not sit. You understand what you triggered, the legal officer said calmly. I understand what happened to her. You created an interdepartmental breach. She was locked out of a secured corridor. That is not the point. The guard met her gaze. It is the only point. The Security Command officer folded his hands. Household has filed a formal complaint. They allege you acted emotionally. I acted procedurally. They will say you fabricated urgency. There was a child behind a locked door. Silence. The wall screen changed, now displaying a static frame from the corridor video. Charlotte, one shoe missing, hand pressed to glass. This image is already in 3 oversight systems, the security command officer said. It can't be removed. Household will try, the legal officer added. Let them. The legal officer studied him. You may be suspended. Yes. You may be reassigned. Yes. You may be blamed. Yes. None of that touched the fact that Charlotte was not in Camilla's corridor anymore. Security Command's tablet chimed. We're receiving inquiries from external child services. They were notified. Automatically. The guard exhaled slowly. That was another line crossed, one the palace could not quietly step back over. Camilla is requesting a private hearing, the legal officer said. She wants this reframed. Of course she does. Outside the room, phones were ringing. Not palace phones, press liaisons, government offices, systems that did not answer to royalty. Charlotte was now a case. And cases had gravity. The security command officer leaned forward. You should prepare yourself. For what? For isolation. The guard looked at the frozen image on the wall. I'm already there. The screen went dark. Charlotte's image vanished, replaced by a blank blue field. The legal officer gathered her papers. Household will attempt to reclaim jurisdiction. They'll argue this was a misunderstanding. It wasn't, the guard said. They will say she wandered. She was locked out. They will say it was safety. It was exclusion. Security Command's device chimed again. External Child Services has opened a preliminary review. They are requesting full corridor logs. The legal officer's mouth tightened. That will not be well received. It shouldn't be. A knock came at the door. Another security officer entered, eyes cautious. Sir, Camilla has arrived in the building. She is requesting immediate access. The room went quiet. She's coming here, the guard asked. Yes. The legal officer closed her folder. This is where it becomes personal. The security command officer nodded. Do not engage emotionally. The door opened before anyone could answer. Camilla stepped inside alone. She did not look at the officials. She looked at the guard. You think you've won, she said quietly. I think a child is safe. For now. The legal officer stood. This is not. Camilla raised a hand. I am speaking to him. The guard did not move. You have created something that will not end, Camilla said. You have invited people who do not understand this family into our walls. They understand children, he replied. Her eyes hardened. You don't belong in this. Neither did she. Camilla turned away, already recalculating. This will be contained. It won't, he said. She paused at the door. We'll see. When she left, the room felt colder. The legal officer exhaled. That was a threat. The guard looked at the empty wall where Charlotte's image had been. So was the door. The palace did not change its schedule. That was how it survived disruption, by pretending nothing had happened. From the guard's position in the secondary security office, he could hear the distant sounds of a reception being prepared somewhere above. Cutlery, chairs, voices rehearsing politeness. The palace continued to perform itself. His own world had narrowed to a desk, a sealed terminal, and a formal notice of suspension waiting in his inbox. Security Command had not removed him from the building. That was intentional. They wanted him close enough to consult, far enough to isolate. The terminal chimed. External Child Services requesting follow-up. He opened the channel. A woman's voice, calm and firm. We have Charlotte in a protected location. She has given a preliminary statement. Is she all right? He asked. She is shaken, she is not harmed. That was enough. We are submitting a formal request for all palace data relating to her separation, the voice continued. We will not be deferring to household authority. They won't like that. That is not our concern. The line closed. The guard sat back, feeling the quiet weight of consequence settle around him. This was no longer a palace matter. It was a civic one. A knock at the door. The senior security commander entered. You should know what's coming. Disciplinary. And worse, they will try to make this about your conduct. It is about hers. Officially, it never will be. The commander studied him. You understand that you may not return to duty. I understand. But you did what you were assigned to do. The guard said nothing. The terminal chimed again. Palace legal. Household has filed a motion to suppress the corridor logs, the message read. They are claiming privilege. Security Command responded automatically. Denied. Child protection supersedes. The palace was losing. Slowly, quietly, but irreversibly. He thought of Charlotte in a room somewhere without marble or guards or locked doors. Just people whose job was to listen. The knock came again, softer this time. A junior officer stepped in. Sir, Camilla has been denied access to the child. The guard closed his eyes. That was the line. Once crossed, it could not be stepped back over. The palace reacted the way large institutions always did when control slipped, by becoming very still. Meetings were postponed. Corridors were quietly reclassified. The household reduced its visible movement, retreating into private spaces where cameras could not follow. It was a tactical withdrawal, not an admission. The guard remained in the secondary security office, his suspension now formal, his access card limited to non-operational zones. He could no longer walk the West Wing. He could no longer stand where children passed. That was deliberate. They were trying to erase him. Security Command did not. His terminal displayed a live feed from the oversight board, a closed session, names scrolling. Civil authorities, child protection liaisons, palace legal advisors forced into the same digital room. Camilla's name appeared on the docket. Charlotte S. did not. That was another small victory. She was being protected even from being discussed. A message came through. Preliminary finding. Improper use of restricted protocol on a minor. Not a verdict, but enough. The senior commander stood behind him. They can't undo this now. They'll try to shift it. They always do. But they can't make it disappear. The guard watched the line update again. External review pending. Household authority limited. Somewhere inside the palace, Camilla would be receiving that same notice. A ceiling had formed above her power. The junior officer returned. Sir, Charlotte asked for you. The guard turned slowly. What? She asked if the man in the red coat was okay. He did not speak for a moment. Tell her, he said, that I am. The officer nodded and left. The palace lights dimmed slightly as evening settled over the estate. Outside, beyond the gates, the world was waiting. Systems larger than royalty had begun to take notice. The guard sat back in his chair, suspended, isolated, professionally ruined. And yet, for the first time since the West Wing doors had closed, something felt right. A child was no longer alone behind glass. And that was a line no one could ever move again.